Our next modeler is Carl. He's born and raised in South Central Pennsylvania, in the heart of Pennsylvania railroad country, and grew up in a model railroading family. Migrated west over 40 years ago to Minnesota, where his wife's family was located, and taught high school art for 25 years. After retiring from teaching, he opened his own studio. And Carl continues to create in watercolor painting, stained glass, small business, display and design, floral design, and of course, model building. In high school, Carl was introduced to the architecture of Frank Lloyd Wright, and he's visited over 200 building sites. And I am very jealous. I thought I had visited a lot of Frank Lloyd Wright building sites, but I'm nowhere near 200. He and his wife spend many hours up the road along the shores of Lake Superior, participating in their grandchildren's activities. Carl's tip will utilize one of Little Building Co.'s smaller kits, the Richmond Frontier Hotel, which is seen here. This is part of a series of 8 lower priced kits that model buildings from Australia and small town America in the 19th century. So Carl?
Thanks, Greg. I started out with the Frank Lloyd Wright models, but I just want to say that this series of models is a great one if you're just starting out with this building model lines. So I recommend these very highly. Next. Good tools and supplies are essential for model building. One of my very important ones is a sharp X-Acto knife. The glue you see here is one that I discovered from our home remodeling contractors. It dries it dries clear, but has a little bit of a yellow brown tint, so it does blend in well with the wood. Also, there's the toothpicks, and I use food skewers also where you have to reach down into the model lower to apply the glue. Next. I recommend reading through the entire direction sheet before you start, and I always cut the attachment tabs with my X-Acto knife to remove the components from the blanks. Next. Just to reiterate what one of the other presenters said, I never apply my glue directly from the bottle, but squeeze some into a small container and use toothpicks or the long food skewers. Also, you can see here I've propped the model up at a different angle so that I can have better access to what I'm gluing. And the last is you got to have patience. Adjust small pieces as the glue sets up and wait till the glue is set up before moving to the next piece. Next. Sometimes I apply a little bit more glue liberally to areas where I know that it will not be visible when the model is finished. Next. There you can see my seashell glue dish. Picked it up on the beach on one of my trips. Have many of them sitting around. And tweezers, that was not on my original slide. I use tweezers a lot to place parts. And again, I try to always dry fit pieces before applying glue and setting them into place. Next. After I know it's fit well, then I apply the glue. Next. Sometimes bending or breaking the toothpick a little bit partially will give you better access to the gluing area. Next. And then using a damp cotton swab to clean up excess glue where it might be visible on the finished model. Next. By looking ahead to the next steps, I sometimes leave the pieces attached to the blanks for better stabilization and attach the next piece to it while it's still in there and before I actually cut it and remove it from the blank. This piece that I'm applying was one of the pre-glued pieces with a peel-off back. Next. And then I also glued in the next 2 small pieces before I took it out. Here again, I'm cleaning off, wiping off the excess glue on the back with my Q-tip. Next. as the model was getting finished, I noticed on the top of the false front vertical facade of this building, one of the slots and tabs showed, I'm pointing at it with the toothpick, and I wanted to cover that up. So the next slide shows me using a piece of the scrap left over blank that was the perfect width. And again, I'm pointing to it with the toothpick that I'm going to use. And there I am cutting it out of the blank. I'm next. Measured two pieces that were the same length. Next. Peeled the back off, and there I'm using the tweezers, and I'm applying that in over top of where that slot tab showed in the on that finished piece. Next. Then I glue that piece in, applying the glue. You can see where the glue is starting to dry on the previous piece. And again, this glue here will not show on the front of the finished model. Next. And then lastly, using the damp cotton swab again to clean up excess. On the finished model, all the extra glue on the backside has dried to the wood tone clear finish. And that's it for me.
Great. Thank you, Carl. And this last picture is actually a Roby House model that Carl made using Dover Books has a cut and assemble version of Frank Lloyd Wright's Roby House. And he used that as the basis for building this model and added the landscape. Somebody asked a question about landscaping, and certainly the Jacobs model in particular is well suited to landscaping. I've done that with a grass mat and some trees, just like Carl did with this picture.